Hello, my name is Andrew Hamilton. I am the book review editor for the Association for Mormon Letters, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite books by Signature Books, The Skeleton in Grandpa's Barn, which unfortunately the title was backwards on your screen there. This is a collection of essays from the Utah Historical Quarterly. It's actually the first book by Signature Books that I ever read, and I love this book because it is full of personal essays that give history a very personal and intimate touch. It helps you to feel what days were like in time gone by in Utah. You get not just a feel for the early history from the big world leader, important type perspective, but from the very personal perspective of the people who are living it. The first essay is called Never Change a Song by Faye Decker Dix. And in this fun essay, she tells about how when the LDS Church changed the lyrics of O Ye Mountains High to make them more friendly to people that were not members of the church, her father insisted on singing the original lyrics loudly in front of the entire congregation, and this embarrassed her and her sister to no end. She explains after this happened for the first time, she went home after church and her sister said, "I'm humiliated, really humiliated, and I'm going to do something about it." And Faye, the author, said, "There's nothing we can do. We ought to just forget today." And her sister said, "Well, I won't. I'll do something. Starting next Sunday, I'll always take the sacrament with my left hand. That's what I'll do." And at that point, she started her very own revolution against her father by taking the sacrament with the wrong hand to protest his singing the song incorrectly and embarrassing her in church. The next essay is much more serious. It is called One Long Day That Went On Forever, and in it, it tells the story of Celine Hardy Fraser, whose father and brother were among the 172 coal miners killed in Castlegate, Utah on March 8th of 1924 in a mine explosion. It's a very serious and somber essay, but again, it helps to give you a feel for the kinds of things that happened in the past as people tried to grow up and experience Utah 100 years ago. A fun essay comes after that called Zion's Rowdies, Growing Up on the Mormon Frontier. A little more serious essay comes along in Hide and Seek, Children on the Underground by Martha Sontag Bradley. One of my favorites is by Lamar Peterson, and it's called My Garden of Eden. He talks about growing up in Eden, Utah, about 100 years ago. What I find kind of amusing about this particular essay is that as he's writing, he describes all the wonderful and beautiful things his family did in the kitchen. They canned fruit, and they played games, and they ate meals, and they had fresh bread, and all sorts of wonderful things. And then he tells of a time that the doctor came by. Every year the doctor would visit and check out his tonsils and make sure his health was good. But he says, in my 5th year, he seemed more interested in something besides my tonsils. I was sent out to play in the sand pile. Though this was a place of refuge, I felt apprehensive. I knew from whispered conversation and strange looks that something was brewing. Soon Papa came out. Taking me by the hand, he led me to the kitchen. There, in the presence of my sisters, I was placed on the table and pinioned with firm hands while Dr. Olson wielded his efficient scalpel. My screaming bloody murder did not dissuade him from performing the ancient rite of circumcision. I was plenty mad for 2 good reasons. It hurt like hell, and my sisters were not welcome at ringside. And I have to say, I would agree that if I were being held down to a table and circumcised, I would not want my sisters being around to watch. The next essay talks about growing up in the days of the railroads coming through Utah. There's an essay on Everett Roos by Gary James Berzera. That's a fascinating introduction for those that might not be familiar with the life and thought of Everett Roos. Other essays go on to talk about children who used to ride sleds down the streets of Salt Lake. There's an essay on Topaz, City of Dust, by a Japanese person who was interred there during World War II. There's an essay about going on a trip with the mail in the days of early mail delivery. There's an article about growing up in Helper, Utah as a Greek individual by Helen Z. Papankolis in the earlier days of Utah, and it finally ends with The Skeleton in Grandpa's Barn by Herbert Z. Lund, who talks about how his grandfather, a physician, had a real skeleton in their barn. It's a fun book that is full of essays that will make you laugh and cry and give you a great love for personal and local history and give you a greater feeling for the people who came before us experienced as they tried to grow up and learn and love and experience life. I love this book. I love how it introduced me to personal history and to signature books. I encourage everybody to go out and find a signature book that touches you. Thank you.